We've been talking with Pet Nora, and she's one of the very few people who experienced domestic violence at a very significant level and survived. Aside the first episode of being pushed down before you said your ex-husband traveled abroad, what other active scenarios of violence can you recall? I mean, like real physical violence.
I think the most painful one I can actually recall is when I lost my babies in 2015.
Wait, you lost your babies how?
I was pregnant for a set of twins, and we got into a heated argument, and we fought. We fought to the extent that my cousin, who was coming from Agbo to Asaba, got into Asaba, met us still fighting.
Was he aware you were pregnant, your ex-husband?
Of course he was. Of course, that particular day, I was ready to die because I had had it up to here. I couldn't take it again. So I just felt, okay, it is what it is. If I die, fine. Since I can't talk to anybody about this whole thing, I am labeled the aggressive one because I am social, I am outspoken, I am out there.
The stereotypes.
You know,
when a young lady is sociable and all gregarious.
So you're tagged all kind of names, and at that point, nobody's ready to stand by you. So I just felt, okay, this is my fight, and we fought.
And in the process?
Nothing really happened in the process. It was like few days later, I started bleeding.
So was there a medical link between the eventual loss of the pregnancy and the fight you had?
So the whole fight made me start bleeding after some time. Okay. Even before the week where the bleeding became very intense, I was spotting.
Okay.
So somebody directed me to another doctor of Jesus Saves, one doctor around Jesus Saves. So when I got there, he gave me, I don't know, some injection to sleep off. So I told him I would prefer to go home. I would prefer to sleep at home.
Bed rest or something.
He said, exactly in his words, he said I needed a bed rest. So I went home. But from the time he gave me that injection to the next morning, I was like almost dying. So my friends came. My mom was alive then. My friends came. I was just blaming my mom. Sure, you see, I have told you I don't want to stay. You want me to? She said, don't worry, you'll be fine. Blah, blah, blah. Because she visited me that period. As at this point, he had gone back to Europe.
So it's like a hit and run thing?
Yeah, whenever he comes to Nigeria, we would always have issues. And he would just leave me and go back. In his words, once I'm pregnant, say, okay, you are pregnant, I have to go. So I think that was, I don't know, maybe he just wanted me to just...
Did you ever consider the option of relocating to Europe with him?
Yes, we did.
So?
Okay, there was a time I gained admission through his link, but I don't know what happened between him and the people. They refused to alert me about the admission, forgetting that my email address was used for the admission process. I already got the notification for me to, go to the embassies.
So with all this going on, and you were apparently at the point where your life was threatened, and your parents, for some reasons, didn't want you to leave the marriage, did you seek help from another source?
I didn't really know what to do. I was not informed. I didn't know I could do, probably go to women affairs, or I was just concentrating on making the marriage work. I was just probably feeling that someday I'll get used to these abuses. And
what about his family?
His family, I know they never liked me. I don't know what their reasons were. I don't know.
You know or you think?
I know. I lived with them. I lived with their father. I took care of their father.
This might just be your opinion,
They say it to my face.
Guys, we are seeing a pattern here. Something happens when a lady, particularly, yes, this is not a stereotype, men to go through domestic abuses. But in this case, we're talking about a lady who survived domestic abuse. Something happens. When a woman starts going through abuse in her home, the first thing that happens is that she becomes isolated, either by her own doing or by some kind of gang up or coincidences, she becomes isolated, then she's numb and she starts backtracking on life itself. Then she doesn't know who to talk to. That's what happens. So you are now in that world where you are dying and yet you can't talk to anybody.
True.
That was your case. And you know, the devil is a master trickster. The first sign or the first strategy he puts out there is to isolate you. Before he kills, he isolates. Man was created to live in communities, different kinds of communities. No one relationship in life is more important than the other. Okay, some are more important than the others, but you can't live with just one relationship.
I think there is this, the people feel that when you're married to a guy living abroad, you're made.
Gold mine.
Yes, you don't have a problem. You don't even need to complain. You dey enjoy now.
It's poverty bias.
So
it's poverty bias, really. Because to the average Nigerian or African, I mean, we are biased towards poverty and the longing to walk out of it. So any leeway out of poverty should be held, even if it costs you your life.
True.
and biblically speaking, there are many covenants in life. But the most important covenant in life is the covenant of life itself. So anything that threatens life itself should be let go.
True.
Yes, we want to survive, want to make money, want to have love and loyalty and brotherhood and other things that are different covenants. But the covenant of life itself supersedes every other covenant. So you are holding on to somebody who is a ticket to your survival or to your next level, and he wants to take life out of you.
True.
Job said, if a man dies, shall he live?
No.
So you see, that's a funny thing. So at what point, Nora, did you think you couldn't do this anymore?
At the point where I lost my kids and I was heartbroken, after I lost my babies, I became very sick. My womb was, I don't know what happened actually, but I kept bleeding for a while. You know, and at the
After the evacuation?
Yes, after
you
the
still
evacuation.
continued bleeding?
Yes, I had pains all over. My tummy was getting swollen, you know. Sometimes I would just feel pains. And so one day I called him and I just wanted to talk to him, you know. I told him I was tired, that I needed to call it quits. Then he just laughed and said, I beg you, see you want come out for marriage. You think say anything dey street. They never marry people wey get flat tummy. Can't be you wey carry big belly. I just felt bad. You know, and I'm like, when you got married to me, I didn't have this kind of tummy. It was as a result of your kids. He said, but forget, it didn't say easy. Young girls full street. They never see husband. You know, I started healing. I took my son away from me because I didn't want him to see me. I didn't know the decision to take at that point. I would sometimes lock myself in the room. For like 4 days, I won't come outside. I won't eat, I won't drink. I just kept to myself, you know. So I was very sick. I didn't tell anybody. The only person I told was my uncle's wife, who was the chief matron, and she advised me to go for scan. But at that point, my fear is because before the evacuation, my mom was crying before they took me into the theater. So I didn't know what happened, but I just felt they had removed my womb or something. You know, because after the evacuation, I can't even undress where people are. I was having awful smell. So I just felt, okay, if I have this kind of awful smell, I should just stick to taking antibiotics. Maybe I still have sore somewhere around me. I was just healing alone. I didn't want anybody around me because at that point, I just felt worthless. Because there is nothing I will tell you that you will understand. So I just kept to myself. So in the process, I lost my mom.
While these were going on?
Yes, I lost my mom in 2016. After my mom's burial, I called my elder sister and told her she needed to go with my son to Lagos. So she didn't hesitate. But
Because
she
I
didn't know
guess
why.
your son was now becoming dysfunctional. I mean, this was taking a toll
Okay,
on
my,
his...
my son actually went through therapy in Lagos because he witnessed some of these hits. You know, there was this particular incident when he came back. I was pregnant for my twins. I
Still
wasn't
heavy,
okay.
yeah.
So he came in. I think I didn't. He misbehaved actually. He went to somewhere in Ogwashuku to look for one girl and had an accident there. So my mom, normal, typical African woman, and how can your husband have an accident and you don't even want to get to the accident scene and all of that? So I followed them to Ogwashuku. When we got there, a young lady, rickety, raggedy looking young girl, was walking beside him, calling him baby, baby. I'm like I was heartbroken. Because when he had the accident at midnight, he called me and said he had an accident. I was scared. Then when he got back, he said, thank God, say, I not go find girl.
Okay, this is what he said to you when he came back?
Say, yeah, if thank God, say, not be girl, I go find her. At that point, I didn't really want to know if you went to look for a girl or anything. I was just concerned that you're back home. So I made warm tea for him. I brought a boniki, I massaged all his body, and we slept. So the next morning, I think he didn't see it coming. He didn't know I was going to follow him to the accident scene. So when they towed the vehicle to the mechanic, I came back home. I was still very angry.
After you had witnessed what transpired between him and the young lady?
Yeah, and his friend.
Okay.
So I got home, had my bath. I had my son, and I was trying to play with him with his iPad when he came back. You know, this attack is the best form of defense has always been, I think it's men's thing, I don't know. So he came in and he was banging on the gates. Open this door. I said, hold on, they are looking for the key. He said, you want to lock me outside my house? I was irritated, like, what's wrong with
having
you?
witnessed what happened.
Yes,
Instead
of you to come back calm and just come in and let's sort things out, you're shouting from outside the gate. So when they opened the gates for him, I think that I actually blame myself till now for taking that action. Maybe I wouldn't have lost my kids. So when he was about to walk past me, I just hissed. I'm like, The next thing I heard was a slap on my face.
And your son was observing this?
Yeah, he was right there beside me.
What was his reaction?
He just started shouting, daddy, 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 daddy. I wasn't even looking at him because I was furious. So I just, immediately he slapped me, I just pounced on him and we started fighting. You know, he pushed my son out of his way and he fell somewhere. It was later my help started telling me that daddy flung my son out of the way so he could reach out to me. So that was the fight that led to me losing my twins. Yes.
Pregnancy.
And then another incident that my son witnessed was when we were coming back from somewhere in Agbo, so we're coming back to Asaba. So there is this cousin of mine that has 3 baby girls. No, 2 as at then. So these kids were very close to my son. They are still very close to my son. They are like his cousins. So we're bringing the kids to my house for holidays, and my son wasn't aware of it. So we just said we wanted to surprise him with, you know, the kids. And we got to somewhere around Okpanam Road, that time before Eagle Square, somewhere around Okpanam Road. And something, I think my phone rang. My phone rang. It was my cousin who was trying to call me to know if we've gotten home. And I think he misunderstood the call or something. And I just smiled and he said, who is calling you that you're smiling like this? I was the one driving. So I just said, I beg, leave me, Jerry. He said, I'm asking you a question and you're telling me to leave you. Who they call you? So he heard the stereo. And, you know, then they were constructing Okpanam Road. Then we fell off the road and the car was just like this.
This was while you were driving?
I was the one driving. You know, so the kids were in the vehicle
in
with
the
us.
car
We were driving down to Asaba, you know. So the kids, they started shouting. It was as if the car wanted to tumble or something. The 2 tires by this side was just hanging like
already,
this. Yeah, so many people ran to us. I was just shaking. I was just scared. I said, not now, please. But he just came down and slammed the door. So my cousin's kids were...
And you were pregnant at this point?
No, this was another incident. I had already lost the baby. He had gone back and come back. He came back this time for his father's burial in 2016 after my mom's burial. So the kids were shouting. I always throw light on these two incidents because the kids still remember that incident vividly. So they were crying, mommy, 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 please, what happened? Are we going to die? I said, just don't worry, don't worry. I was shaking. You know, so some guys came and they helped us push the vehicle.
At this point, he had exited the car.
He came down and left us in the car now. So when they stabilized the car, he got back inside and I drove home. I was crying, I was shaking. So when we got home, my immediate elder sister brought her fiance home to show me. They visited Asaba. I think they were lodged somewhere around my house, but they heard we were coming because we were talking on the phone. So they were in the house. So they witnessed this particular incident too. So when we got home, I was really in pain, you know. So I was bringing down stuffs from the car. I don't know, I think my son's boss, his favorite boss was in the car. So as I was just bringing down stuffs, my sister ran to me because nobody knew what happened, but the kids were still shivering. They were still in shock. So I told, because before then I called my son and said, we have a surprise for you. So that was excited. My pain. Because if I hadn't called him to make him expect something, and it turned out to be a bloody surprise, maybe he wouldn't have maybe he would have forgotten by now. So because I called him to say, I have a surprise for you, which were the cousins. So when we got into the compound and he didn't even stop, the kids came down and they were shaking. My son ran towards us, heard his cousin, mommy, I saw the surprise. Wow, they came. You know, I didn't talk. I was just bringing out stuff from the trunk. I was still shaking. Then the next thing, he came to where I was and, you know, started fighting me. He took my son's favorite box and slammed it on my head. The box, you know, those plastic, beautiful cartoon character boxes. So the box scattered and my son was crying. My sister was begging him. My sister's boyfriend then was begging him. Neighbors came. All my neighbors then, they still call me to check up on me till date. You know, so that incident was the last stroke that broke the
That's when you decided you were done.
Yes, so I took my son away from me so I could probably think of an escape route or re-strategize or do something about my life. Because at that point I knew I had made a terrible mistake, you know. So when my son went to stay with my eldest sister, who is a pastor in Lagos, she really helped me. My sister one day called me and said she needed me to come to Lagos. I was scared because she had gone with my son for a long time. I was depressed. I was going through a lot alone. So that fateful day, my elder sister sent me a clip. And when I downloaded the clip, I wept profusely because that was my son narrating the whole ordeal to my elder sister.
Okay, so your son had opened up to them?
Yes, because the first time my son got to Lagos, my elder sister would call me, you know, subsequently to complain about his character. I don't like what he's doing. You know. If I'm trying to maybe argue with somebody, he will rush inside and rush in between and start saying, no, don't hit, don't touch you. No, I don't want them to touch you.
That's more like PTSD.
He was traumatized.
Yes, PTSD.
Yes, he had post-traumatic.
Yeah, exactly. That's what's happening to the small boy.
Yes, at that point. So my sister was like, what kind of environment did you raise this boy? He was barely 4 then. He was just 4. So I would just cover up. I beg, leave this boy, Jerry. It's like he's watching too much movie and all of that. So, but that particular day, my elder sister sat him down and took out her time to really interrogate him. So he was scared to even open up. I still have the video till date, you know. So he was trying to explain to my elder sister how daddy would come inside and carry a knife, how mommy would carry another knife. So he grew up
Witnessing the whole madness.
Witnessing the whole abuse and everything, which really traumatized him. So at that point, my son, throughout his stay with my sister, never argued with anybody. He never fought in
Because
class.
to him, argument will result
Yes,
to something crazy.
He didn't like that kind of violence at all. If he see two people getting into a heated or suspected heated argument, he would just start crying. He would start shaking. So it took my sister time to,
Did he visit
I
a therapist?
think my sister got a therapist for my son, because at that point she took it upon herself. She just let me be. When she sent me the clip, she invited me to Lagos. So I got to Lagos that day and she sat me down. She's a pastor. She spoke to me, brought out the Bible, showed me different verses, we prayed, and she said I should just open up and tell her the truth. So I wept. I told her everything. Then she brought out somewhere in the Bible where it said, God hates divorce. I just laughed. I was crying and laughing at the same time. She was like, why are you laughing? You think it's a joke? This is the Bible. You have to find it. I said, if that is the case, that means God hates me. Because at this point, I have made up my mind to go for a divorce. Yeah. So I now asked her one question. I said, at one point, did God say you can leave
a marriage?
A marriage. I'm not very conversant with the Bible, but she said, when your life
is threatened.
Yes, when your life is at stake. I'm like, okay, thank God I have now, I can leave. And before then, my dad was very sick. I went to my dad and I explained to my dad what has been going on. And my dad was like, right from time I knew this wasn't going to work. If at this point you want to leave, I'll give you my full support. I felt light. For the first time in my life, somebody is saying, I understand your pain, And after my dad's burial, I called it quits.
You see, guys, most times we are in a place where we become victims of our own compassion. Exactly what happened to you. You became a victim of your own compassion, so you became immobilized even when your life was at stake. You were immobilized. You stayed because something inside of you wanted you to be compassionate, to do more. Thank you for making it to the end of this video. I believe you learned a lot from it. There is more. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and follow us on other social media platforms so you can see more interesting content and let others see the same thing that you've seen. Thank you.